We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including all kinds of offseason trade speculation. Tonight, we're looking at teams like the Edmonton Oilers, the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres, as well as the Detroit Red Wings and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Plus, we had a very interesting prospect trade go down just a little bit earlier this evening, which we'll discuss, between the Oilers and the Lightning. The CBA was ratified here today. We'll discuss what that means for the league and the PA and take a look at some of the main points in this agreement. Plus, we had a record-breaking announcement in college hockey with Gavin McKenna jumping from CHL to the NCAA next year. We'll discuss what that means for the future, what kind of money he's going to possibly make, and how that's all going to impact the game, plus a few signings coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in tonight's video. Just before I get started to record this one, we had some breaking news between the Oilers and the Lightning completing a prospect trade. I'll touch on it here, but I do have a separate video that I just posted to the channel not too long ago. But the rumors around Isaac Howard have been around for quite some time, and he's been linked to a team like Edmonton for a while now. Isaac Howard, of course, we know was the late first-round pick of the Tampa Bay Lightning from a couple years back in 2022. He's played 3 years of college hockey. He's done it really, really well. It was last season's Hobey Baker Award winner for the top college hockey player, and was poised to join the NHL. A lot of people thought the Lightning had a real gem of a prospect here to join their organization, but for whatever reason, when they were talking to him after his college season was over, something broke down, whether it be in negotiations, relationship, etc., and he basically refused to sign. I don't think they were expecting that, but it wasn't long after we heard that basically the relationship was essentially over with, and he's been linked to the Oilers for some time, who has also have signed him as well to his 3-year entry-level contract. So not only was he traded to the Oilers, but he will be on their roster on opening night and will have every opportunity there to succeed, given where that team is at with their roster depth. So I suspect players like Howard and Matt Savoy to play a big role for Edmonton next year. But the Edmonton Oilers have to send a highly touted prospect on their own right, Sam O'Reilly, to Tampa. Of course, O'Reilly was a 2024 draft pick taken late in the first round, 32nd overall. The Oilers actually traded up to go grab him as a late first round pick. A big part of the London Knights this past couple of seasons, was a huge part of their Ontario Hockey League championship team and Memorial Cup winning team this past year. Projects to maybe be a third line player, but a really good number 3 centers where a lot of people thought he would fit in Edmonton, of course, with the two top guys there with McDavid and Draisaitl, expecting to be there long term, right? So on another team, he goes a little higher in the lineup. Tampa's obviously pretty deep as well, but either way, some think O'Reilly might even be the better prospect long term. Depends on who you ask. Right now, though, I think as of today, Howard I would say is the better prospect and is more NHL ready. And the Oilers are trying to win right now, which is why they make this move. I don't really think they wanted to move O'Reilly, which is probably why this drug on so long. There was lots of speculation they had offered a first-round pick in a future draft year, and Tampa wasn't having that. So the deal's finally done. Howard will be in the Oilers lineup next year. O'Reilly will be in the Lightning organization and will likely still get an opportunity, but I would suspect his path to the NHL might not be quite as quick in Tampa, but either way, a fine player going in return to the Lightning. Now, the other big news we got today as well was that the NHL and the NHLPA have fully voted on and ratified the new CBA agreement. Of course, we know that the announcement we got from Gary Bettman and Marty Walsh of the PA just back, what was that, about a week and a half ago now, confirming that they had an agreement in place, was great. That was a big part of it, but it still had to be voted on. So the votes are all in. It's passed through, been accepted. We now are guaranteed NHL labor peace until at least 2030, which is phenomenal. Of course, if you're old enough like myself to go through the earlier days of Gary Bettman as commissioner, we've had, unfortunately, a number of work stoppages, which has lost a lot of hockey in the past. To see things trucking along here with good peace and positivity and everything is a welcome change, and I hope we never go back to those days here again. But some key points in this new CBA, which will kick in next season. They're going to be going from an 82-game schedule to an 84. So 2 more regular season games, which is 1 more home game, 1 more road game. The extra games as well will be built in to more divisional matchups. And we're also going to get less preseason games. So training camp and the preseason schedule will be shrunk down to make this accommodation. And NHL regular season games are also expected to start a little bit sooner on the calendar. Normally it's in the first week of October that things get started. Now it's expected that it's probably going to be towards the last few days of September. So all in all, I know there's probably a mixed reaction on this, but it will increase revenue a bit with more games, more tickets. But it shortens the preseason, makes games more meaningful a little bit sooner. And all in all, I think it'll be just fine. Of course, the long-term injury reserve loophole is going to be closed for, in a sense, we are going to have a form of a playoff salary cap. We don't know the full details on that just yet, even though they announced today that the deal was fully ratified and the voting was fully accepted. They have not released a full document. They said it would be posted with both the PA and the NHL sites at a future date. But we know that basically there was going to be a version of a cap in the playoffs, and we know that it's going to prevent teams from being able to really load up, throw a player in LTIR in the regular season, have them sit out, and then load up. A lot of the cup winners have done this. And I'm not saying players weren't rightfully injured, but the part is that they get to the playoffs, that player comes back, and now you're ultra stacked, which you wouldn't be in the regular season. So that loophole is being closed. There's also not going to be double salary retention. So when a player gets traded, it'll eliminate a third-party broker. But you know what? The reason I don't think that's going to be an issue is that the amount of cap increases we're expected to see in the next few years, teams are going to have a lot more cap space anyway, and that really shouldn't be something that's really necessary. Contract length is changing. Before, the maximum terms were 8 years and 7 years, depending if you'd stayed with your existing club or moved on to a new team through free agency. Those are both going to go down by 1 year. So it'll be 7 years if you stay with your team, 6 years if you go to a new team in free agency. Each team as well will be able to carry a permanent third goaltender, so a permanent E-bug, essentially, emergency backup goaltender. So there won't be any more situations where you get guys that are, college or university players or beer league guys or whatever coming in and kind of creating a different, advantages perhaps in some cases. Because, if every arena has their own guy, depending on where you're at, what you got for experience, it's really not consistent. But at least now teams will have their own player. So they can make that as strong as they're able to, I guess, in that sense. There's also not going to be a dress code in the NHL anymore, so teams are not going to be able to mandate dress codes for players. There's going to be a standardization of draft rights. Right now, if you're drafted as a college player in the U.S. compared to a CHL player out of Canadian junior hockey or from Europe, the rights are different. Teams have different periods of time to sign everybody and how long they hold their rights to do that. That's changing. It'll be standard across the board. Minimum salaries are going to be increasing in each year of this agreement as well. Not only are the NHL players going to the 26 Olympic Games, so they'll be going to the 2030 ones as well. That's included here. And we know that they're planning to hold World Cup of Hockey every second year that in between the Olympics, because also every 4 years there'll be a World Cup. Every 4 years there'll be an Olympics. And that means that every 2 years, because they'll overlap in different increments here, that every 2 years we'll get a best-on-best tournament. So all in all, that's great. The 50-50 split between the players and the owners is staying put. There's no mention of players getting a chunk of expansion money, anything like that. And I believe their benefit package that they're getting is supposed to increase and be better as well. So all in all, a pretty straightforward, pretty good deal. Because the only thing we're really not 100% clear on is exactly how the playoff cap will work and with the LTIR changes that are being made. But we'll learn that 100% confirmation of that once the league releases the document. Now, as I mentioned as well, we had a big announcement tonight. It came out on ESPN from Gavin McKenna, the projected first overall pick in 2026, making his choice of where he's going to play next year. And he unveils that he's leaving the CHL and heading to the NCAA to join Penn State. which is not a big surprise. We talked about this yesterday, that was a speculation where he was going. It's believed that they offered him a deal that has a value in a $700,000 range. This is a record-breaking deal for hockey players going to college. This has been nothing like this before. This is obviously a new rule where junior players in Canada are allowed to make that jump and are eligible now to play in the NCAA. We're going to see more of it, especially from guys that are dominant. But, this is a big deal. I mean, this has never happened before. I mean, if you imagine guys like Connor Bedard when he was dominating junior, or even way back when Connor McDavid was dominating, if this wasn't even an option. They could have gone and made tons of money as a college hockey player for a year or two before turning pro. It's significant, not only for their development, but for their financial gain that they're going to get from it as well. You get McKenna, who's dominating junior hockey right now, last year in Canada. There's not much left for him to really learn and benefit from staying there, whereas he can go to the college league here and play against guys that are, you get some 18-year-olds, you're going to have guys as old as 23, 24, a lot more bigger, stronger, more mature. It should be better for his development in theory. And he gets to earn an amount of money that's not too far off the mark from an NHL minimum salary. So financially, you can't go wrong. And developmentally, I don't know you can really go wrong either. So this is a phenomenal kind of breakthrough here with the rule changes. And Gavin McKenna might be looked upon as being a bit of a, I don't know if we really want to call him a trailblazer, but something along those lines. And one of the first guys to really kind of break through here from junior hockey to college hockey and get a mega deal. It's going to set the standard moving forward. So that's phenomenal for the game of hockey, but it does suck for the Canadian junior hockey leagues, there's no doubt. But it's just the reality of where things are. As soon as this change was made in the NCAA, a lot of people seen this coming. I think we're going to have to see the Canadian junior leagues, especially for special players like Gavin McKenna. They're going to have to, because right now you can play at age 15 if you can get a special exempt status. I think more of these players should be getting that to play junior hockey when they're 15, 16, get them in a year sooner so they can, play at that level, and then go to college for, maybe their draft year and then go to the NHL. That if more players want to take that route, they need to get them to junior hockey sooner. So maybe they need to change the rules a little bit on exemption and focus on these special talents. They can still benefit from them being a part of their league, but maybe it's at a younger age. We'll have to wait and see where that goes. But there's definitely going to be a lot of changes in the whole landscape here of development paths across Canada and the United States will be changing for sure. Some other news around the NHL today. The Colorado Avalanche have announced that they've hired Dave Hakstol as an assistant coach. Of course, Hakstol's been an NHL head coach of multiple stops, so lots of experience there for him to come on and join the staff in Colorado. We have a couple of signings as well. The Pittsburgh Penguins have signed 2025 first-round pick Ben Kindle to his 3-year entry-level contract. Of course, like I said, the significance of some of these players signing their ELCs is that you can know for sure that they will not be going to college, and they may actually, it doesn't mean they're going to get to the NHL any faster. It really boils down to their personal development. But it's a reminder for players that they can go from the CHL to the NCAA, but they can't sign a pro contract first. So in his case, Kindle will be staying the junior route till he's ready to turn pro. The Vegas Golden Knights today signed 23-year-old RFA defenseman Lucas Cormier to a 1-year deal as well. 1-year, 2-way contract. Last year wasn't a great year for him. Had a injury-riddled season, didn't play a whole lot, but really his developmental time he's had in Henderson with the American Hockey League a couple of years prior to that was pretty solid. He's got a few NHL games under his belt. Of course, Cormier, New Brunswick native here from my home province, got to play his junior hockey in the queue with the Charlottetown Islanders. Was a phenomenal junior player, was one of the few defensemen to win the top recognition as top defenseman in that league on multiple occasions. Looks like to me, I think he's in a spot with Vegas where he could see more NHL time this year if he has a good training camp and everything. He's now waivers eligible, so to get him back down to the minors, he'd have to clear through that. And, he's, to me, a pretty talented young D. I could see the chance of him getting picked up. So I do wonder if they're going to try and make room on their roster, or at the very least for him to be a seventh defenseman. But I would suspect that he's going to see more NHL time this year. We'll see where things go. The Canucks have also signed a couple of players as well, including Jet Wu. He gets a 1-year, 2-way deal. And they've signed goaltender Nikita Tolopilo to a 2-year, 2-way contract as well. And the Islanders have signed Adam Beckman. He gets a 1-year, 2-way contract as well. So a bunch of signings there today. But like I said, a bunch of interesting news between the trade we got tonight, the CBA, and then the Gavin McKenna announcement earlier tonight on ESPN. In the rumor mill, we're going to take a look at a few things. One, Byram, of course, in Buffalo, still one of the bigger names we're expecting to be traded, but I do kind of wonder now if the odds might have shifted a little bit towards maybe the Sabres just play hardball here and don't do it. But we know that, for example, the Flames are one of the few teams that are been in the mix. We've heard about the Blues. We've heard about the Kings. There's a bunch of other ones, not Islanders. A bunch of other ones is what I meant to say. The Sharks were a team as well. There was probably 7 or 8 teams at the peak of it that were really had heavy interest in Byram. But the word was from NHL insiders that the offers just weren't good enough. And the intel tonight suggests that the price isn't going down. If anything, it might go up a bit. Adams is sticking to his guns here. They've already filed for team-elected salary arbitration, so he can't do an offer sheet at this point. Elliot Friedman said he believes Byram is not completely opposed to returning to Buffalo, that as much as he expected to be traded, he didn't demand a trade or anything like that. And if he is signed and not dealt, that he wouldn't have an issue going back. But yeah, we'll see what happens on Byram's front. I know in Calgary, there was some talk that the Flames were willing to meet the asking price of the Sabres, but they would not meet the asking price of the player for Byram himself on the contract. So that I thought was interesting. We knew Calgary was one of the top teams pushing. Like I said, the Blues are a team, the Sharks are a team that have been in there, and a few others. There's a bunch that have been very interested in Byram, even his old team in Colorado to some extent, Vancouver to some extent. But yeah, some of these teams their interest levels vary, and it really, hard to say how high they're in there. But right now, Kevin Adams is not happy with the offer. So that's why a deal has not happened as of yet. And yeah, he's sticking to his guns on the price tag. Now, there was some interesting info out of Frank Saravalli, too, in a recent podcast. Now, this may not be something that's still maybe something that could happen now, but apparently the New York Islanders were seriously considering moving goaltender Ilya Sorokin. At least there was enough conversations around the draft that there were some people that thought it could actually happen. The belief is we know that the Islanders were really interested in trying to get not only Matthew Schaefer first overall, but to figure out a way to add another top 4, 5, 6, 7 pick, whatever that needed to be, to get James Hagens. Now, of course, Hagens, a Long Island native, had a phenomenal season and is expected to be most likely number 1 center in the NHL. He grew up an Islanders fan, and I think the Islanders were quite thrilled with the idea if they could get both, but they knew it wouldn't be easy. And one team that we knew was heavily interested in upgrading their goaltending this year was Utah. Utah, of course, had the number 4 pick, and according to Frank, there is some belief that the two teams discussed swapping that number 4 overall pick so the Islanders could get Hagens, but it was going to cost them Sorokin. We know the Utah Mammoth were a team that were heavily linked to upgrading their goaltending, and well, this would have been a major upgrade for them. So doesn't mean the deal would have been 1-for-1. We don't know that, but just that there were discussions. And it's kind of bringing people back to say now, like, well, if they were willing to consider that, is there anything else they would consider? I've seen some Edmonton writers suggesting that, well, if he theoretically was available, then the Oilers should be all over talking to the Islanders about Sorokin. And you know what? Maybe they should be. But to be honest, I think it was a unique situation. I don't think they went into this offseason saying, yeah, we need to trade Sorokin. He's one of the league's best goalies. The contract's not too bad. He's at a decent age. I don't think they have any reason to really consider moving him unless you're getting a high-end talent that you just can't pass up. And clearly with Hagens, that's kind of, they were pretty close to feeling that way. Obviously not quite because they didn't pull the trigger here. But, if I'm Edmonton, would I inquire with Matthew Darche and the Islanders to say, hey, I heard you might be interested in moving Sorokin. Can you imagine what they'd ask Edmonton for, though, right? What is Edmonton going to give the Islanders for Sorokin? Don't know, right? Like, probably nothing that they want to part with. So it's not really going to happen. So as much as I've seen some talk about the Oilers should be all over this and how Frank was talking, this was a unique situation. Like, he didn't go out of his way to say Sorokin's available or that, teams are trying to get a trade. Like, there was some talk around the draft. It was a unique situation. And yeah, maybe if they're willing to consider that, maybe teams should call and see what they can work out. But I don't think it's going to be possible for Edmonton to pull something like that off. Now in Montreal, some more chatter around them. Of course, we know that they've been busy this offseason. There's still more talk. I know, looking at more info from Marco D'Amico, saying that the Habs are still not done. And also had to listen to some of the comments from Eric Engels on Sportsnet recently as well. And we know, we've heard about the Kuznetsov rumors, that might be something they're looking at. I'm not convinced that he's really the right player for them. I think he would be a player that might drive Marty St. Louis crazy. If you look back at what he did in Washington when they won the Cup, he's had his moments. He can be a great player, but just watching him play in the last couple of years, I'm not sure. If they can get him cheap enough and there's not much risk, okay, maybe you take the chance. But the belief is, because we've heard about the Habs still being linked to Jordan Kyrou, I'm not convinced that's happening. But there was also some chatter about Anthony Cirelli at Tampa. Now, again, I don't think this is really going to go anywhere. The belief from D'Amico was, I don't really want to, I don't know if it's calling this like an unsubstantiated rumor is the right thing, but it just sounds like it might be more of a fan base driven player that they feel the team should be going after. Now, there was a scenario, I think, before July 1st that, we know Tampa is a ruthless team. Julian Breezewell is not afraid to make tough decisions. That Cirelli, like another player like Kyrou that they've been after, also had a no-trade clause kicking in on the same date. And if they were going to make a move, it probably would have had to come before that. But at this point, we don't really have any reason to firmly believe that Cirelli is available right now. I think like a lot of teams, before no-trade clauses kick in, they are kind of reevaluating and wondering, okay, we could trade them now. Is there any chance that it makes sense for us to do that? So, yeah, I do think there was a chance that the Habs were inquiring on his services and that Cirelli's a player they probably like. I just don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that Tampa would move him. And now it would be more complicated given his protection in his contract. But Eric Engels made an interesting point. All this talk around the Habs and their number 2 center and how they're going to address it. He wonders if there's a possibility that Ivan Demidov might be the number 2 center long term. Just watching him how he plays, wondering if he could be that guy. And maybe they don't need to go get a center. Maybe between Kirby Dach and Demidov next year, they could experiment a little bit. They have an extra winger that they just picked up in Boldu. Maybe between Laine, Boldu, Dach, Demidov, they can figure out the pieces there with maybe Demidov being the center to have a good second line. So, it's kind of tough to say. But I know, look at Tim Stützle, for example, in Ottawa. Prime example, when he was drafted as a winger, but a winger who had played some center. But, he played wing in his first couple of years in the NHL. And then once they put him at center, it was so hard to take him out of it because he just looked so good. He was such a good skater. He has great vision. Has become over the last, as time has gone on, more and more responsible. And you could probably see similar properties of Demidov's game. So, you know what? Maybe it's something they really should be considerate of. And maybe they don't need to go find a player who's going to be linked up and locked up long term or anything like that. Because he could maybe become that player for them. We'll see. I just thought it was an interesting take. All the talk around the 2C, and it's proven to be challenging. Maybe they do a wait-and-see approach, see how Dach looks. Maybe give Demidov some looks there and see where things go. Because even if it worked out, if Dach was looking okay, Maybe you move Doc to the wing and you put Demidov at center. Then you've got options like Boldu or Laine on the other side. It could work out. I mean, it's not a given, of course, but it's something that's worth looking at for sure. Erik Karlsson, of course, out of Pittsburgh. We know him. Brian Rust and Rickard Rakell have had a lot of chatter lately. Obviously, lots of teams are interested. Everybody knows they're fully available if they're wanting to make a move. Obviously, there's lots of chatter around him. It doesn't sound like anything is too imminent at this point. When it comes to Karlsson, there's been a few teams mentioned, but one team that reportedly is very interested and sounds like they've had some conversations with the Pens around him is Detroit. Now, of course, Detroit does have a history with a lot of Swedish players that have been very successful there. We know Steve Yzerman's not afraid to bring in an older player who he feels can be a big role. So, don't be completely shocked if you hear Detroit's name linked to Karlsson here throughout the offseason. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what Pittsburgh would try to get out of Detroit. To be honest, Detroit is a team that they have some good young players, but they've got a lot of older players as well. And I think Yzerman needs to be careful here. I don't know that Karlsson's the missing piece to really take this team to the playoffs. Because if I'm Yzerman, that's my focus. Like, looking at last year, you get teams like Montreal and Ottawa got ahead of me. I've been rebuilding, as longer than some of these teams, and we're not a playoff team yet. We came really close the year before. This year we took a step back, and now Ottawa and Montreal have jumped ahead of me and got into the playoffs this year. So, I can't be too happy about that. But is Erik Karlsson going to be the difference to get you ahead of some of those teams and make you into a playoff team? I don't know. I really am not sure that it will. I think there's enough flaws on that team that maybe it's a fun acquisition. Maybe you get a few more goals. I don't know that it's really going to make that much of a difference, but we'll see. They are one of the teams that does apparently have heavy interest in the multiple-time Norris Trophy winning defenseman. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.